So without further ado, building on Polkadot, please welcome our moderator, Zoe Machbach, and her panelists.
Thank you. Exhausted already. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello. Cool. Everyone comfortable here?
Yeah,
Great.
good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel here, Building on Polkadot. My name is Zoe. I'm Global Head Ambassador of Polkadot and a council member of Fala Network, a parachain built on top of Polkadot. And I'm here with 3 amazing speakers today, all building parachains or have built already alive with parachains on top of Polkadot. We have Francisco Bistev, Director of Moonbeam, Marvin, co-founder of Fala Network, and Greg, CTO and co-founder of Unique Network. Big applause, please, for our speakers. Great. Before we start, I want to get a little feeling of this room here. Who of you have built, maybe directly on Polkadot or on top of any parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem? Raise your hand. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. Some familiar faces here, of course. Some new faces. That's cool. And for everyone that's new to the ecosystem, this panel today should give you a bit of an introduction. And also, if you have questions, we want to open up this conversation afterwards to your questions to the audience. So please feel free to raise your questions to the speakers directly. Great. Yeah, I would like to start with the open question. What exactly is your vision actually building in the Polkadot ecosystem and also beyond? And Francisco, I would like to start you with this.
Yeah, sure. So I think in general, like as we've seen Web3 develop, there's this like narrative that's been created, right? With this question of like, what's the best blockchain? And you know, at Moonbeam, I think very early on, we just saw that the nature of this question is just incorrect, right? It's clear that like there's going to be many blockchains, and that each blockchain is going to should do something very well, and it should specialize in doing one thing well. And Polkadot very much aligned with that vision, right? And then also the idea of interoperability. So having each specialized parachain to have like the capability to communicate with other blockchains within Polkadot, and that it creates this kind of network effect where it's more efficient and it's an optimized way to operate within Web3. So that's why we decided to build on Polkadot, right? And we see the industry of Web3 evolving in this direction, right? Where having a standalone chain is limited, especially the way that the market has evolved, where builders, developers, users want to have access to many different blockchains, right? So I think we're very much optimistic about the future of Polkadot, and I think the vision that we have is like fulfilling that vision, right? Executing on it and collaborating with different parachains on Polkadot, building unique use cases. I think XCM, and we'll get into that later on, is a unique differentiator for us, right? And I think we should strive to kind of capitalize on it. So yeah, I would say that at a high level.
Cool. But if you could elaborate also a little bit what Moonbeam actually does for the Polkadot ecosystem?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I take a step back. So
Yeah.
what we're doing at Moonbeam is that we've focused on building one of these member blockchains on Polkadot that focuses on Ethereum compatibility, right? Because while Polkadot provides all these innovations related to interoperability and specialized use cases for blockchains, we saw that the technology stack is a bit different, right? And it's one that developers are not entirely used to building with. So we just saw an opportunity to leverage the adoption of the Ethereum tech stack on Polkadot, right? So that developers that are already building on Ethereum or any other EVM compatible layer 1 can leverage their existing code base, port it onto Moonbeam, thereby having access to this broader Polkadot ecosystem where you can interact and communicate with other blockchains, but still using the EVM and Ethereum. And also being able to tap into like Polkadot native functionalities like staking, governance, XCM, which is kind of this common language that Polkadot uses for parachains to communicate with each other. So we're really focusing on that right now. Yeah.
Cool. And thank you.
No worries, no worries.
And Marvin, you gave a talk yesterday already, but for everyone that maybe was not able to see it, what is Fala's mission in the Polkadot ecosystem and maybe beyond, because your protocol can be also used outside of Polkadot ecosystem?
Yeah, I will start from how far why we use Polkadot a couple of years ago. So our team is founded in 2018. The how to say, in the bear market like now. So yeah, so every situation seems very familiar with us. But the very original idea for Fala is we realized that smart contract can't save the world. Just a smart contract can't save the world. We need services and Web3 infrastructure beyond just a smart contract. So we began to explore the potential solutions on that, and now everybody called it Web3. So if you want to describe something very different from Web2, it's decentralized, transparency, verified, and permissionless. But it's not just a blockchain executing smart contract. You call it Web3, right? So then we realized, okay, Dr. Ganwood is actually the very first batch of people who bring up Web3 concept. And he really believed in it, so that he founded Polkadot. So that's why the foundation behind Polkadot is called Web3 Foundation. Okay. And yeah, so this is ecosystem, how ecosystem mission and version match with the ecosystem layer 0 mission. So that's why we are using Polkadot as our layer 0 for Fala network. What we are providing now is a decentralized cloud. But guys, don't misunderstanding. Cloud is actually the major resources on cloud is data storage and data computation. And we know that there are already some very solid and good protocols are dealing with data storage, but data computation we are still we don't have a good-to-go solution yet. So Fala is majorly targeted on data computation scenario, and our cloud is decentralized. Every server provided on Fala is P2P, so it's provided by the people following the on-chain rules. And yeah, I think we can replace Web2 world into Web3 little by little. So that's our mission. Speaking with the interactability in the Polkadot ecosystem, I think we want to kind of provide rich middleware services to no matter it's a smart contract platform or IoT platform or metaverse or NFT platform. And we want to be the decentralized physical module for Polkadot ecosystem. And on the other hand, we also carry some part of the responsibility to engage more developers to use WebAssembly. So now I know EVM virtual machine is quite popular, and most of the developers are very familiar with Solidity. But we also think WebAssembly have its own advantage and unique advantage. So we are also very bullish and sure on WebAssembly technical ecosystem. So yeah, that's our contribution to the ecosystem in the future. Thank you.
Pretty cool. Thank you, Marvin. Yeah, and Greg, please also short vision and mission of Unique Network in the Polkadot ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks. I think we are very well aligned with between teams. I can only summarize what what we were just talking about. Unique is here to add value by being open, interoperable, and by working on joint projects with other ecosystem projects, other ecosystem parachains. Interoperability means a lot in this group of projects, because we create value which is multiplied by number of parachains. Every parachain has its own mission, has its own feature, functionality, and if we create NFTs that can be used in gaming on our chain, It doesn't mean it's limited to gaming only. The use cases are unlimited as long as the world is open, the ecosystem is open.
Cool. Yeah, so 3 different parachains with their own purpose building here or have built and are live on Polkadot and Kusama. Since there are some people that maybe are not too deep in the Polkadot ecosystem, a question, what is from your kind of point of view the biggest misconception about building on Polkadot that maybe people don't really understand or they see it maybe not in the correct way and we could explain it better? Francisco, please, from your perspective.
Sure. I mean, I think in general, Polkadot is it's complex, right? It's not so easy to understand, but there's always reason to the complexity. There's rationale behind it. So I think one of the misconceptions is that when you talk about building on Polkadot per se, you have to kind of break down what Polkadot is. So there's like the relay chain, which is the hub of Polkadot, and that takes care of providing shared security for all the member blockchains or parachains that attach to this relay chain. And teams can't necessarily build on the relay chain, right? You need to you need to either build a parachain on your own, or you build on an existing parachain, right? I think that's a misconception in and of itself. And I think very few teams like Remark, for example, have managed to kind of build not using a parachain. Another misconception is that, I mean, you don't necessarily have to build a parachain to build on Polkadot, right? You can also use an existing parachain like Moonbeam or Moonriver, deploy smart contracts, and you can get access to the Polkadot ecosystem that way. Sometimes building a parachain is not the easiest first step for many teams, and I think Moonbeam and Moonriver have taken a good approach there, or we've taken a good approach there in providing like an easy on-ramp for developers to build on Polkadot. And I'd say another one that always comes to mind that users always get confused is Kusama. That's not talked about that much. So the idea that like Kusama is a testnet, this is what many people talk about, and it's not really true, right? I think there's a general misnomer or misconception with Kusama, and having built on Polkadot and having launched a parachain on Kusama as well, you really see the value of having this like experimental network where you can actually ship new things and ship code and new features under real economic conditions, right? So it's not actually a testnet. There's real value-bearing assets on there. And I think the idea behind that is that unless you ship things under real economic conditions, you're not going to get the same effect than you would of launching it on a testnet. And things like governance are a good example, where if you launch governance on the testnet, nobody shows up, nobody votes, nobody cares. But if there's real money on the line, then like you get a different effect. And I think it's been like extremely useful for many parachain teams to launch on Kusama, because then all of that work that you've done gets replicated. You can transfer that experience onto Polkadot as well. So yeah, I would say those things are common misconceptions.
Great. You covered a very important point. Marvin, from your perspective.
Hello?
Yeah.
Is it good? Okay. So I'm going to go very straight. I think there's 2 common misunderstanding when we are kind of like show people into Polkadot ecosystem, but they have like troubles to get into. The first one is too expensive. So for general developers, they think, okay, we need crawl loan, right? We need to beat the slot. So that's the key tokenomic in Polkadot ecosystem, no matter it's on Polkadot or Kusama. So it's too expensive. Like that's the most frequency words I heard. But I'm going to clarify a little bit. So if you're a blockchain developer, it's not expensive at all. So no matter which kind of like consensus algorithm you choose, proof of stake, proof of work, like no matter what it is, you always have an inflection on your network, token being mint out, or you need people to stake, so you need to give inflection to incentivize the validators and the nodes. So general, the inflection is around 5% to 20% per year for each proof of stake chain. And for the parachains on Polkadot, it's actually smaller size than 5% per year, no matter it's on Polkadot or Kusama. And in the meanwhile, with that amount of inflation, you can get actually better security guaranteed for your blockchain. So let's say 500 million total cap, worth of cap proof of stake blockchain. 5% valuation cap, inflation every year, and the security level is 500 million blockchain security level. But if you are parachain, it's 5% every year to reward the crowd loan contributors. But in the meanwhile, you can get the top chain level security guaranteed from relay chain. Okay, Polkadot is top 10 and Kusama is top 50. So you can get like stronger backed for the security of your blockchain. So this is for blockchain builders. And for application builder, you don't need to participate in crawling. You don't need to like reward anybody. You just dump your program on EVM environment or WebAssembly environment. That's it. So it's not expensive at all. So this is the first common misunderstanding. It's too expensive. The second is it's too hard to learn Rust. So for blockchain developers, I think Rust have a very linear, learning curve. You do need to study a lot. But in the meanwhile, Substrate help a lot in the modular already for you to set up your blockchain. So I still remember like in the 2019, Gavin Wood in Web3 Summit, he took out a new fresh laptop and set up a blockchain in 10 minutes. That's amazing with Substrate SDK. So because of Substrate, we actually already reduced learning cost for Rust. And yeah, I can say that I think it's much more easier to rather than you write every module by yourself, no matter what language you are using. But this is for blockchain developers. It's a little bit hard to learn Rust, but it's worth it. In the meanwhile, they already modular it very well, so you don't write the raw code. On the other hand, for dApp developers, we got already Moonbeam, Moonriver, A-Star, all of these smart contract chains to support EVM, so you can just very easily write your Solidity and deployment it on the smart contract network. On the other hand, I also know a lot of teams like Fala, like A-Star, and maybe Gear, very supporting WebAssembly ecosystem. So you can, if you are familiar with WebAssembly, you can also create applications on top of this language. So I mean, it's pretty easy for application builders. Yeah, that's the two common misunderstanding here.
Very good to add on this. I think you also broke it down very easily. Greg, anything to add on this? Otherwise, we would.
I think thanks. I think a couple of more days of market going down, and Kusama will become testnet. Sorry, just a joke. I hope it's not financial advice. So I think I'm really pleased to see how misconceptions evolve with time. Actually, we in the beginning when we nobody knew what is a parachain, what it's supposed to be for. We've seen a lot of general purpose parachains. I think it's a great misconception that you should have a purpose, you should have a niche. And then later on, we've started seeing the parachains that are designed for a single application, for one game or for one thing that doesn't necessarily have to stay permanent. It's another misconception because, well, it's too little for being a parachain. There are only 100 parachains on a relay. It's too few, and it needs to have broader spectrum of applications.
Great. Thank you, Greg, to add on this. Just a follow-up question to you directly, because as CTO building a parachain, I want to talk a bit more about parachains in general. And we know all of your parachains are live on Kusama as well as Polkadot. We just learned Kusama is the country network of Polkadot. So what challenges did you face actually launching your before standalone chain, or let's say blockchain, then into a parachain to Polkadot and Kusama? What was a big challenge that you faced? Yeah, Greg, please.
Well, I think the biggest hurdle we had is the change in code base. I'm sorry for I'm not trying to say anything negative about parity code base, but I really hope they will stop developing at some point, and that will let us take the lead on this. It was really hard to follow up. But I'm actually glad to be in that environment, because in the best practice of extreme programming, refactor mercilessly, we are forced to refactor all the time. And this is great. I believe this will bring us to the best code base we had ever in our lives, in our projects. So even though it was kind of a negative thing in the beginning, it will bring us to something good.
Okay, and Marvin, from your perspective, Fala also is one, let's say, special for kind network, because it's only one token for two networks. You know, most of the parachains have their network on Kusama, and then on Polkadot they have two different tokens. Fala is only one token. Why did you decide on doing this, and maybe also some challenges that you face?
Yeah, how to say, first, I think in the very beginning, we just came up with the idea why we have to have two tokens separately for Kusama and Polkadot. And after our doing some economic and game theory research, we realized, okay, we can try this. So I'm not saying two tokens, one for Kusama and one for Polkadot is bad. No, it's just a different trials. You know, we want to try something different. And another thing is, because we've been through the bear market, we know the fear, the thought from the market. So we actually prepare for this. You know, I think no matter how the market moves, but we want to make sure the community won't separate in two parts for Fala. So, so this is why we can actually vote on Kala network, on Kusama, for the decision, for the strategy about Fala's crawl-on or slot auction public voting. Is because one token can make sure there's no two community, you know, two parachains only have one community, and everybody can present the whole ecosystem. But in the meanwhile, we also want to host the two chains on both Kusama and Polkadot, because I mean, I'm a nerd guy, you know. I like Kusama. I prefer Kusama. I think we can't tell, you know, which is better, you know, Polkadot or Kusama yet. So we will see in the next 3-5 years. So maybe Kusama have more prosper or more fitable use cases for Fala network. So we can't just run for Polkadot and forgive about Kusama. So we need to have both chains, but we don't see the necessary to have two separate tokens, because we don't want to separate the community into two parts, especially for moments like this, you know, that people can gather together for one community and one ecosystem. That's the original reason, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So you're well prepared for current situations. Cool. I would like to dive a little bit into XCM. You mentioned it already. XCM is the cross-consensus or cross-messaging format. Actually, in Polkadot, it will be renamed, that's why, but the short version is XCM at the moment. And first of all, maybe Francisco, if you can explain on a high level the difference between XCM, which is naturally built into Polkadot, to bridges, and then also how XCM enhances your business model or your services to the community at the moment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think a lot of the success of Polkadot and Kusama depends on XCM, right? As I said before, this is something that we consider a unique differentiator to Polkadot, Kusama, Moonbeam, and Moonriver. I think recently you've kind of seen how the industry has evolved from having a mono-chain deployment for teams where they just thought that Ethereum was going to be their permanent home, and then you kind of saw in the last 12 months or so the rise of this multi-chain approach where you saw EVM-compatible layer ones like Avalanche, Phantom, BSC get a lot of popularity and traction. The thing is that this was kind of step one in the multi-chain world, right? It's a bit problematic when a team deploys on 10 different chains, but teams want to have access to new users, new assets, and this is why they expand. But at the same time, it brings about a new set of challenges, right? For example, liquidity, bridging liquidity from chain to chain in order to interact with different instances of your protocol, that becomes a problem. It fragments liquidity. There's a bunch of different bridges, right? So each wrapped representation of an asset creates more fragmentation. Things like governance, so including your community in governance decisions throughout like the 10 different chains becomes problematic as well. So there's definitely like clear indications that the market is heading into a permanently multi-chain environment, but like these different L1s weren't natively built to interact with each other, right? They're kind of standalone. And now you see these kind of bridges popping up, like dozens of bridging projects to try to fill this demand. But there's like trust assumptions, right? And there's security implications given the fact that they weren't natively built into these layer ones. And this is why we're so optimistic about Polkadot, is that XCM kind of fixes this problem, right? It's kind of natively baked into the architecture of Polkadot itself. So you strip away a lot of the security assumptions or the security implications and the trust assumptions. So now a team can interact with other blockchains without having to worry about that on Polkadot. And yeah, we really want to position Moonbeam and Moonriver as a place for dApps to build like natively multi-chain applications where a lot of these problems related to liquidity and governance are solved by having built on Polkadot. And yeah, this I would say is like inward facing into the Polkadot ecosystem. And now we're even starting to see projects like focusing entirely on tackling this problem like outward facing, right, between L1s. So we're trying to collaborate with as many projects of those as possible, since, I mean, at the end, the reality is that many of the projects that build on Moonbeam, it's a mix between native projects on Polkadot and also projects that have all these deployments on different EVM layer ones. So we want to be kind of the best place for teams to leverage all of these cross-chain functionalities by partnering with high-quality teams. So yeah, I would say we're very much optimistic about XCM, about Polkadot, and it's going to play like an essential role in Web3 and where the industry is heading, and it's pretty clear that it's going to be important.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. Greg, also from your perspective, what use case or what are you planning also to do with XCM for Unique Network?
Yeah. First of all, I think XCM is great. XCM allows to transfer value between chains, just like a bridge. But except hacking bridges is possible. We've seen this quite recently. And hacking XCM is as complex or as difficult as hacking a blockchain. So it's very secure. Yeah, adding just adding to the value between chains or the interoperability. This is exactly what enables multiplication of value of single chains.
And any specific use cases you want to talk about from Unique Network?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like for example, recently we integrated with Akala, another parachain, a big parachain in the ecosystem. We listed our token, and we are working on. I hope to be. We're going to be one of the first networks that uses XCM 3.0 to send NFTs to StateMine. Where everybody else can grab them from and send it to their network. So,
great. Thank you, Greg. Marvin, you want to comment on this as well?
Yeah, I can't wait. So, in last week, there's a meetup in Berlin, Parity's office about Polkadot ecosystem, and the same questions asked me, and I gave the answer, and everybody laughed. So. I don't know why they laughed. It shouldn't be a joke. So I'm going to repeat the question, the answer, which is, I think the best use cases for XM is in the future. We don't know that yet. But we already know what use cases can be delivered in the next 6 to 12 months, right? So for the guys, but I think I need to explain a little bit more about what is XM, what is HRMP or XMP to audience. So for the guys who are not so familiar with Polkadot ecosystem, the cross-chain ability is through the XMP and XM. So XMP is actually like the layer 0 of Polkadot infrastructure is pretty like highways to link up different cities, and it is already been built and it's already set up, good to go. The highway is empty. So now the next step is XM. So XM is more like traffic rules to define who can drive and in which way you can drive on this highway. So it's like traffic rules. And the next step is the parachains will negotiate with the other guys, and how we can use the XMP is pretty like we can define what type of the cars we can drive on this highway. So now it's basically a truck, like token transfer, a size transfer, and DeFi smart contracts using the XM to transfer tokens or just transfer tokens between different parachains. It's pretty like truck. And we don't have like cars, and we don't like have a Tesla yet. So I think the best use case is to use this highway is in the future, and I think there's a lot of potential there. Some ideas cross our team's mind is if we can use this cross-city highway to send data, and just the data, like data transporting instead of remark for assets order book. I think it will be very interesting because it can increase the interactability between different use cases, and it can create the next prosper for Polkadot ecosystem. So this is the ideas we have, but we don't know what it will be exactly in the next future. It's so that's why we also hosting the workshops and engage more developers to join, because the best ideas always coming from the applications builders. But guys, the highway is already there. It's totally free to use. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, great comparison. XCM as a highway for blockchain. It's pretty cool. Or for the transactions, that's true. So since each of your parachain have a different purpose, right? Individual purpose. What are you most excited about? We just talked about XCM, but something else, or what you're seeing already, or what you're missing that actually could support your blockchain development also for the Polkadot ecosystem. Francisco, you want to take this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So things that we're excited about or that we're seeing develop.
Yeah. Polkadot or Kusama.
Yeah. It relates back to what we were just talking about, right? I think for us, the beginning was getting traction, right? And being relevant and getting developer traction. And I think we were able to leverage that via Ethereum and being like an easy on-ramp onto Polkadot and Kusama with all of these Ethereum tool sets. And that was what we focused on at the beginning, getting multi-chain teams where they wanted exposure to the Polkadot ecosystem, and Moonbeam was kind of the natural partner in order to achieve that. And now we're focusing more kind of on more complex use cases within Polkadot and cross-chain use cases. So using XCM, like Marvin was just saying, I think step one is just token transfers between teams, parachain teams. And Greg was mentioning as well, soon NFTs will be able to be transferable between parachains, so I think that's quite cool. But yeah, we're really focusing on kind of taking this further, right? I think token transfers is step one, but we're really looking to capitalize on more complex use cases, right? We've seen many of them in DeFi now. So for example, like Lido deploying on Moonriver, they built their dApp on Moonriver, but on the back end, it's kind of accessing their liquid staking solution. So you basically stake KSM and they give you liquid KSM. This is all done remotely on the relay chain of Kusama, right? So this is a good use case where you can see multi-chain being used and XCM being used, because the user is not even aware that on the back end kind of smart contracts are calling the relay chain to access these staking operations. So this is quite interesting. And we're going to be looking to do these similar things with other parachains, right? Like Marvin was saying, transferring data or using maybe an NFT project that builds on Moonriver or Moonbeam is able to use the storage capabilities of Crust, which is another parachain. Things like this, I think are going to be really interesting. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Greg, from your perspective.
All right. Yeah. I need to step back a little bit and introduce a new term. Well, we are using it inside Unique. It's called painless transactions. Why they're painless? If you try to use our marketplace, you'll notice that you have a couple of Kusama. You can buy an NFT, but you don't need to use Quartz token to process that transaction. It's just transparent. It's just transparently paid for you by the network. or actually by the owner of the marketplace. We call it transaction sponsoring, it's the other term. But I really like painless transactions more because it's painless. I can create something without, or do something without pain. So, but what if you are not the unique quartz holder, or what if you don't have a lot of cryptocurrency to sponsor your users? Of course, there is a solution to that we're working on. It's called application promotion, and it's kind of staking. I know that staking is a big subject to talk about in the parachains, and this is the staking in the form of unique. We will allow stakers to input some cryptocurrency they own and to stake it against the application success. So if the applications succeed, we will be sharing part of the transaction fees with the stakers in the future. But while the tokens are staked, we'll be using them to pay transactions. So the users will be able to, or the applications will be able to operate and help their users have Web2 similar experience while using Web3 applications. I think this
Very
is
exciting.
This
Yeah.
is, you know, it's going to be as simple as it is taking a selfie, which I was gonna do and publish maybe later.
Yeah, please send me the photo later. Yeah. So no matter they are using a Fala network or not, I will be quite bullish on the cross-chain use cases in the next, I think, 1 or 2 years, and I think that's what we need at the moment, you know, to prepare the use cases who can totally use the interactability in Polkadot ecosystem. For example, if I met new developers say, hey, I want to check out Polkadot ecosystem, I want to bid for a paragraph. Hold on, man. Let's please explain your use cases to me. I think the infrastructure is already good to support your idea. And if you can use the interactability from different parachains, then it's better. So I think what we need is cross-chain use cases, applications at the moment in general for Polkadot ecosystem. And for Fala, we already set up our tokenomic and our infrastructure. So on our network, there are already over 10K servers, which are all decentralized, governed by network protocol instead of companies on our network, good to go. So we got 10K servers on the net, and we want to use them. So we think in a crypto and Web3 space, attestation and front-end API management and metaverse are the best use cases to use these servers. And that's why we also do some research in last year for metaverse and GameFi and games. And we realized that, okay, actually there's very limited content in metaverse and among the games, and the DAU is quite low. So part of the reason is because I think for crypto guys, for Web3 developers, if they want to build games in some metaverse, it will cost $1 million, $2 million to hire a new game studio team to help them to set up games. So it's a very serious problem, because I know that Web3 community are the most sensitive guys with the pioneer stuff. They want to try new things, but the game development background blocked them. So one of the solution is, I think Bruno just gave a speech in the morning, like we want to set up SDK, not a totally new new protocol. It's not new. It's just an SDK, but integrate what we got in Polkadot ecosystem, different protocols, different services, and different ASIs, so that we can help the developers to get into the metaverse in a very quick and fast way. Like when people using Substrate to set up blockchain in 10 minutes. So I think by this way, we can create a metaverse content world which is forkable. You can copy and and paste your games and make edition on it in really quick way. So anybody can set up his own community in Metaverse. This is something I'm really excited and willing to take my time, my team resources on it in the near future. So in summarize, for general product ecosystem, I think we need cross-chain use cases, and for Fallout, we are very bullish in modular and mini games in Metaverse, and we want to solve the problem that no one can build games.
Nice.
Okay, thank you.
The substrate for metaverses, you called it, right? So a substrate is the framework for building blockchain. Cyphermod is the new model to build metaverses. So that's what, Marvin was describing. Pretty cool. So we have some minutes left for questions from the audience. Any questions here? Yeah, please raise your hand, and I think there's a mic coming.
Hi, thanks. I wanted to ask the panel how they see the parachain auction environment moving forward. Obviously, the parachains have been getting cheaper over time. You've got successful projects like Moonriver, renewing their leases without a crowd loan, but also you've got other projects which haven't even shipped a product or have shipped their product before almost like it seems that their lease is ending. Obviously, it seems like the auctions are going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, especially with the market going down. So, doesn't that mean that the new slots are going to get filled with potentially lower quality projects, and how does that affect you guys?
Great.
Yeah, thank you, sir. If you ask, I'm a nerd guy, I just mentioned, so I would love to answer the question. In general, people will say, okay, no comment on market questions. So I think it's very strange, for DOT and KSM holders or big supporters in the ecosystem, they think they're a little bit thought or fear if the parachain cost reduce. But in the meanwhile, a very block point for the ecosystem scale up is people think the parachains are too expensive. So it's like, we need a balance. We need to reduce the slot cost. It's not actually a bad thing. But in the meanwhile, I have a comment for your question. I think in the meanwhile, there are more and more slots in the supply end. So that's the solution. And I think Kusama just have a huge upgrade in last week, so that the performance already reduced. Sorry, the block producing time from 25 seconds already reduced into, I think it's 13 to 15 seconds. So it's a huge performance upgrade on Kusama already. And we tested, it's running official, it's really work. And we got almost 30 parachains. So I think the next step is the Kusama Council will increase the slot supply. So although the average crowd loan or locking KSM or DOT for each parachain will reduce, but in the meanwhile, the total supply for parachains is increasing. So I think it's not that bad. And in the meanwhile, I think because the current KSM and the Polkadot, the KSM APY is around 20% if you stake. So it's much more higher than a year ago. So I think a lot of the tokens will be also locked in the staking ecosystem. And two answers. The first, we will increase the parachain supply, so it's okay for the total TVL for parachain slot auction. On the other hand, I think the staking algorithm is automatically adjustment, so the APY is higher than a year ago. So there also will be a bunch of KSM go in there. But I mean, based on current market situation, you never know what will happen. I think the Polkadot tokenomics is solid. I think it is solid, so we will survive.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Marvin. And unfortunately, there was only time for one question. It says time is up. But if you have more questions to the speakers directly, you can find us there in the back once we left the stage. So I hope all of you guys learned something new out of this panel, or yeah, got some other questions you can ask the speakers afterwards. And yeah, thank you so much for everyone.
Yeah.